All right, everybody, welcome back to the Warrior Mindset and Motivation Podcast. I am your host, retired Army Sergeant First Class Eric Castillo, and I'm also a coach at Zimi Wellness Center and Indigenous Sovereignty. Today, another special guest. Took a break last week. I had an Air Force person. Now I got a Marine again. So Marines are on a full charge on my podcast over here, coming on and making their stance, showing their presence. And I got Shane Cunningham. He's a broken jarhead nickname. I kind of put that in there in the description for him. And he's Marine vet. He's done a lot of cool things. I read his bio, and he's pretty neat with what he's doing. And he's also starting the Veteran Podcast Awards, which is the first thing I hear, which I've entered in, by the way. Go vote in the Army category in mental health and fitness. But I'll let him talk about himself, because this is, for him to kind of get his information out there, what he's doing, what he did in the Marines, and all that other stuff. So Shane, go ahead, take it away, and tell everybody about yourself.
Cool. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I always get a little bit nervous. I don't know why. Yeah, it's good to be here. I was in the Marine Corps from 2012 to 2017. I was older when I joined. I had a degree, and I was coming off of a divorce. I had my starter marriage before the Marine Corps. And so I was coming off of it. I was kind of in the fog of war of divorce. And they said, hey, we can send you to OCS in 8 months. And I was like, what? That's way too long. They're like, well, we can send you to boot camp in 3 weeks. And I was like, screw it. I'll earn my respect. So, like 4 months later, I hit the fleet, and I was like, shit, maybe I should have waited a little bit. Because it was immediately like my gunny, my E7, when I got out, he was my age at 30. And it was just the entire time was Corporal Cunningham has a chip on his shoulder. I was like, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. Like, good grief. So it was a little bit difficult, but it was fun. Got to do some cool stuff. I was signals intelligence, and I'm still doing that. So most of what I did is pretty much classified still. So I don't get to share any super juicy stories.
Secret
Squirrel. Secret Squirrel, yeah. Got to do some fun stuff. Got to go to some interesting places. And then, got out in 2017 honorably.
Nice.
And became a government contractor. So.
Oh, cool. Government contractor. Can you say what company you work for, or you can't?
I worked for the NSA as a government contractor, and then I switched over to a government civilian employee there. Then I went to the Pentagon. And then I went elsewhere where I currently am. But I'm probably I am leaving in about 3 months. I'm going to just quit. I'm kind of tired of it. So I'm going to focus on Broken Jarhead full time and, leave the government and military behind me. So
that's exciting.
Age of 34.
Nice. I never knew anyone who worked at the National Security Agency. I mean, I knew government contractors and things. One of my old PLs, he works at the FBI, special agent over there, but it's kind of cool. So you did your service from 2012 to 2017. That's actually kind of late in the game too. It's kind of late in the game. So I don't know how it was in the Marines. I'm gonna assume no, because even though I was in the Army, I always know that the Marines don't like to change their standards for anybody. At least that's just from what I see, So for you, actually being this late in the game, was there a kind of like how the Army went through this whole don't yell and this and everything else? Did the Marines kind of do that too during that time? Because I know you've heard of pre-Marine from back in the day, how Marines Full Metal Jacket type deal.
Yeah.
And then when you went in, are they still kind of up in your face in basic training? Because I know in the Army they're not allowed to do that stuff no more. They actually get in trouble for that. So I didn't know if the Marines are different. Since you're a late person, I would like to hear something about that.
So mine, it kind of was at the beginning-ish of that a little bit, where it was said, but say you're going to take it easy on them and not get up in their face, but it was still expected. Once I got out of boot camp, probably a year or two after, is when that kid killed himself, and they were shoving people in dryers and all that kind of stuff. And really this, they made some Muslim kid get into a dryer until he denounced his faith or something.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so I'm not supporting that. But sometimes people need to be shoved in dryers, Yeah. But so mine was kind of right before social justice became a huge fad. I mean, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're for it or against it, before it really got big is when I was there. So you didn't have people going on Facebook and talking about their boot camp, really. So yeah, it was a little bit tailored down, but we were still, yeah, I mean, it was hazing.
Yeah, still getting your
Yeah.
asses handed to you.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't think it was as bad as it was, like when you're in '01 when you're getting ready to go to war. But it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't soft.
Yeah,
Which I was happy
I like
about.
to I like to hear because I joined in 2000 in my basic training. Like it was like I was thrown up a flight of steps. I didn't even think that was possible, and then dragged to my bed because I didn't get
Yeah.
up fast enough because I had 2 duffel bags and an Alice pack, and then kicked in my side and called a bitch because I didn't get up fast enough. Just like yeah, I'm like, okay, damn. And that obviously can't happen now because I see them making like TikTok videos of basic
Oh
training
yeah,
and this. And I'm like, what the, like, what is happening? So now it's
yeah,
like, it's neat to hear from your perspective because now you're 2012 from when I joined in 2000. So it's like, okay, I hear about the Marines and all their craziness and they do. So it's like, now, how is it during that time period, at least when you went? So it's not too bad. At least they toned it down a little, except for stuffing someone in a dryer. But
yeah, yeah. Look, well, like my drill instructors, 3 of the 4 of them got that. We were their last platoon. One of them got NJP'd. One of them got discharged. One of them was at E7, got busted down to E6 and kicked out. Another one lost rank. So yeah, ours was like they were pretty brutal to us. But I thought it was hilarious because here I am, 25, and I went in May. So it was, I think May. So it was all the kids coming off of high school. They're like 17 or 18. They're in there. The next oldest person I think was 19, and then there was me. And so I kind of knew what they were looking for from the mindset piece. And
Mhm.
so watching all these little kids squirm for me was hilarious. They left me alone for the most part because they knew I was old and they didn't need to pay as much attention to me, but I still got my ass handed to me enough.
Well, right,
So,
yeah, just like with that age, like they'll give you that look to see if you need it, but like
right.
they won't really mess with you, like because you're older. It's like even when I had a soldier come when I was this section chief E6, artillery, and he came and he was an old guy. He was like I think 35, 36,
Jeez.
and I did the same thing. I gave him that look and I gave him a couple of tasks to see if I needed to babysit him,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I didn't have to babysit him, didn't have to follow behind him, and then I just left him alone, you know. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like how I see what happened to you is like, okay, let's do this real quick with this guy, and
Yeah.
then oh no, we can leave him alone. He's good. We'll just kick his ass with the rest if it's a mass punishment. But
That's pretty much how it was. Yeah.
right. And you said you deployed while you were time in the Marines. Where'd you go?
Um, I went classified areas.
Oh shit. Okay.
I've been to Indonesia and Africa and Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Keep it the general. And you were
Yeah.
kind of just
General.
doing intelligence things, like
Yeah. 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 Sorry. Yeah. We would, yeah. I don't, the thing is like what I think it's unclassified, but it's like, especially since I'm still in the government, it's like I'm trying to be as objective as possible. But yeah, like our job as a whole was with radios and signals and intercepting signals and that kind of thing. And then, some of our guys were on teams and working with collections and then sending it back to the translators and that kind of thing.
right.
So yeah,
Oh, that's pretty
nothing
cool.
wild. Um, I didn't get like any excitement really, I guess if you put it that way.
Right. No, it's all
Mostly
good.
just like shitty situations mostly.
Yeah. Keep it super general because I don't
Yeah.
need freaking black Chevy Tahoes showing up at my house, and
Yeah,
because I
NSA's
don't know
probably watching
anything.
this right now.
If I see them, I'm gonna be like, oh, fucking
Ah,
Shane,
yeah,
like
yeah. The last interview.
yeah, I know, right? Had to take a very brief intermission.
What is it called? Is it swatted or whatever the kids would do? Like they would call in a bomb threat or whatever, and then the SWAT team would show up to like the gamer's house or something and like bust in. I think it was called swatting.
I've
Yeah.
never heard of that. That's crazy.
Yeah, they would like they would get pissed off at the guy at the other end of Call of Duty or something, and they would like call their local PD, find their IP address, call their local PD, and like call in a bomb threat. And then it would like they would go to that person's address, and you'd have people like sitting there gaming, and all of a sudden SWAT just burst in.
What? That's
So,
a little
yeah,
over the
definitely not a
top.
good
That's
thing,
like,
but
yeah,
pretty
that's
funny.
take your loss take your loss and then keep going. Oh my goodness.
Pretty much. I just
That's
couldn't
pretty
imagine
crazy.
sitting there in my underwear and then with waffles and syrup all over my titties and then the SWAT busting in.
They come in there, get down, and you're like, what? With a
What?
freaking joystick in your hand, like, what happened?
What's going on?
Oh geez.
Yeah.
So during that time, it seems like, as we do a little run through of your time in the service, looks like you were married, then went through your fog of war, and then went to the Marines for more fog of war through that.
Yeah.
And then what made you decide to get out? What was the tipping factor for that one? What was like, okay, you know what, I'm done.
So I met my wife. She's also was whatever we say. What is it? Was a Marine,
Was.
always a Marine, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are weird.
She
with
was
that.
also
You guys are
active
out.
duty.
You're a freaking veteran. You're whatever.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. So we were both Marines, and then we had a kid. Growing up, my dad went to prison, and I never saw him. And so it kind of got to one of those situations. And then I also got injured, and I had 3 concussions, and then I messed up my back pretty bad. So I was kind of just in garrison. I got put into a security shop, and so I guess the culmination of everything was reenlistment was coming up. I've got a kid at home, knowing that I wasn't there or my dad wasn't there for me. I'm also hurt. It's like, let's just get out. Like, I was 30 at the time, almost 31. With all of those, if I reenlist, there's no telling if I'm going to get better and be able to do something, or if I'm just going to be stuck sitting here for the next, 4 years. So because of all those things, I just decided to get out and do it from the civilian side.
Right. Okay. Well, everyone has their reasons, like for getting out. Some choose to make it a career. Some have other paths, other things, they want to do. And
Yeah.
I personally never held no one to stay in like, oh, you're not going to do nothing. I would always just make sure I would make the people who were under my charge, make them show me a plan. Just because they were still in it and they had to do what the fuck I told them to do. So I was like,
if you didn't
I can't
have
stop you from getting out, but you will show me your plan or I will counsel your ass every week.
Yeah.
I will counsel you until you show me what your plan is.
If you didn't have a plan and you just assumed things were going to fall in your lap, you shouldn't get out, because those guys always end up coming back. Like you gotta be like in school. Like, hey, my school starts next month, something like that. Like otherwise, yeah, you're destined for failure.
Oh yeah, totally. That's why I made them show me what they were doing, whether you had a job lined up or you were going to school, or I was like, oh, well, I just don't want to do nothing. No, that I'm just going to keep counseling you. Like every week, what is your plan? Okay, here's your counseling. Just so that way it's like, because it's hard, man. Like even me doing as much time as I did, I was lucky enough to have a job before I got out of active duty, but like some other people are not as lucky and are looking for a job still, and it's hard, like and it's about translating your experience and what you did in the military onto a resume, so it's almost like trade skills, because I work at Intel, the corporation, the computer company. I didn't have any degrees of what they want at all, like zero. And I'm trying to get another Marine that I know that lives down here. I put him in the referral to try to get him hired, and it's the same deal. So I'm using that as like, look, I was like, y'all hired me, and I didn't have your computer degrees, your associate's degrees, or any of that mess. He's the same thing. So what makes him different than me? Yeah. He's a Marine vet, and I'm vouching for him, and I only bring in quality, people who I know will do a good job. So that's what I try to do to help, at least with that. And for those looking for jobs, just keep going, keep pushing. And then for you, so like, how was your transition as we talk about jobs and stuff? Like your transition part, was it smooth? Like, did you get out nice and easy? Was there some bumps in the road?
I mean, mine was easy. Not gonna lie. It was easier, especially since I lived on my own for 7 years before I joined. So, I had already had that experience of being out there. I had owned a business before I got in, so I had the degree, so I was
Mhm.
used to working with all of that kind of thing. So there wasn't as much of the, you know, maybe like feelings of failure. It was a little daunting because it's like you want to start submitting for jobs like 6 months before you get out, but people really aren't hiring 6 months before you get out. Like I
No.
signed my contract 2 weeks before I got out, and then it was leaving California and coming all the way over here to Maryland. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty big. So mentally or emotionally, whatever you want to say, that would be the hardest piece of the transition process. But yeah, transitioning out and getting a job was pretty easy. But it's because I prepared myself before and while I was in.
Right.
So I did, tuition assistance, got a second degree, got my master's degree. Uh, Whereas a lot of these guys that were around me were just going home and playing video games. Nothing wrong with that, but you have free money there, like use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, as far as the transition to get a job, that was easy.
Right. Sweet. And then and you've been out for some time. So any I like to call them second and third order effects. Like for me, mine wasn't the immediate after transition. It was after, later on. That's when my stuff all
Yeah,
came crashing. So how was it for you?
yeah. So I think it would be a little bit like when I got out, I had a month after I get out, I got out as an E4 and I have a E8 mass sergeant working for me. Um, And so it was difficult in the sense there of making sure you're professional. Like you're not a corporal anymore. You're not an E4. Um, Nobody's going to do anything for you.
Mhm.
Attention to the rules of the military still apply in the civilian world. They're not
Yes,
as
they do.
harsh. You're not necessarily going to get your ass handed to you as easily. No one's checking your room and that kind of thing. But you don't just go to work and act like an idiot. Like you still have tact and you still have all of that responsibility. It doesn't go away. And I've
Right.
seen people get out and get good jobs, six-figure jobs, and then lose them within a year because they're acting like a moron.
Right.
Um, but I think it can be difficult too with guys in your situation where you actually retired because here's this dude, this mass sergeant, super cool guy, good at his job, but as he E8 or I can't remember. He's a senior enlisted leader. So you have a senior enlisted leader who back in his prime was doing all this cool shit, right? He had all these certifications, but then when you get up in the ranks, you start overseeing those kind of people. So you're not necessarily hands on. So he gets out and is making like $2,300 a month from his retirement, which is BS in Maryland. Like my mortgage is 2,750 for a townhouse, right? And so he's got that hanging over him. And then because he hasn't touched any of this stuff for years, yeah, he has the experience, but he's starting from the bottom. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of guys expect that they're going to get out and like get into management or something, and that's not the case. Like you should fully expect to get out and start from the bottom again.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. That was one of my things I had to deal with because I managed up to like 250 people at one point,
yeah.
where it's like at that time back then, I expected to get something like that. But
Mhm.
what what vets don't understand, and it's a hard pill to swallow, and I'm going to say it anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got all the skills, but it's a different dynamic.
Yes.
Like when you go to a civilian job, yes, you can manage the people, but when you're in the military, you're just managing people. Now,
Right.
when you're a manager in the civilian side, you're managing people, you're managing finances, you're
Yeah.
doing
Workflow.
inventories. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that go on. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can manage the people, but can you manage QuickBooks?
Yeah.
I don't know what
Exactly.
the hell QuickBooks is. I've seen it. Like
Yeah.
there's like, hey, I can do that job, but then they say, oh, I have to know QuickBooks, and then all these other acronyms, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what any of that stuff is.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then that realization sits in because then now you start questioning, damn, am I even really a leader? Do I even really know how to
Yeah.
manage people? Like, you start to think about that, and
Yeah.
then that starts taking a
That's a
toll
good
on
point.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point because before I switched over to civilian, I was the contract lead. And so I did all the not necessarily hands on hiring, but I would do all the interviews and review the resumes, because contractors, that's something too, a lesson and a lesson. Contractors don't know what the hell they're hiring for. So you like bare your heart out to these headhunters. They don't know anything, right? And so my job was make sure that the people that they find aren't pieces of shit or actually know what they're doing. And so many times I found the resumes of people in your group where it's focused on leading military, leading Marines, or leading soldiers, or whatever it may be, and not anything technical. And for me, the instinct was that's not what I need here. But, I would try to give them a little bit benefit of the doubt and read further. Because, they say, whether you're going to get hired or not is basically in that first page. That doesn't mean your resume should be a page long, but you should capture your reader. And immediately you can tell the people that are kind of banking off the history of spending 25 years in the military. And that's not what people are hiring for. And then when you look at a younger guy who maybe was in for 5 years, they don't have that experience. And so they're focused on specifically their certifications, right? They have to be focused on their certifications. And instinctively, if I was a 25-year guy, I would also be saying, hey, I led 200 people. I did this, right? Like these are people that could have been in war telling someone to go that way, knowing that you could potentially be sending them to their death, right? That's a big thing. But if you don't convey that properly, you're not going to understand it. Like you're taking this person's life, right? That is the equity that a business holds, right? So this contract that's worth $10 million, why should they give it to you? Why? Because I held something that's literally priceless. I had priceless artifacts or subjects that I led, right? And so, but if you don't nail that down and put some like qualitative data to it, you're just going to sound like an old prick. And we wanted to see people who had certs. And so those people that were younger, they didn't have all of that experience. And so they were required to show their certs. And they're the ones that get the job so much more. It's not because they're young. It's because they looked at the right focal point, right? So if you cannot find a way to translate leading 200 soldiers into something that applies to that job that you're applying for, as hard as it is, leave it off your resume. Because
exactly.
It becomes clutter.
Yeah.
It's hard to hear, but it's true.
It's true. Yeah. And it's like, and I learned this from one of my leaders before I got out. It's, and it's when you write evaluation reports, quantifiable results. I did this, which resulted in this.
Exactly.
You can say you did stuff all day, but what was the result from what you did?
Right.
And you take that from your evaluation reports if you were a non-commissioned officer and you move it to a resume, use just some rewording. Hey, I led 200 people in my unit, which resulted in my unit being selected as the top battery in the battalion during fiscal year 19. Now you're saying exactly what you did and when. You're providing that evidence showing that, hey, you were able to manage this many people and you were chosen as the best or number 2 out of 16, something like that. You want to be very specific. It's a numbers thing when it comes, because with the military, it's all numbers. Everything's a numbers game. So the more numbers you can to back up your stuff, it's the way it is. And I had to learn that too. So it's like, okay, I did stuff, but I didn't have that second piece. Like it was like, yeah, well, I did this. But then I was looking at the resume. And this was after I was hired. I was looking at my stuff and I'm like, dang, I didn't really convey. And I had even a writer too help me out. And they didn't really even convey either, like what I did. They said what I did, but they didn't tell me the result of what I got from it. Yeah. So I restructured my own stuff and now it's different, which I don't need it. But for those listening, that's the piece. And if you hear Shane here is giving some good points and things for about work and stuff, take notes if you're watching, because he's giving out some good pointers, especially when it comes to Java stuff, being a contractor and things like that, and resumes. So that's good info. I appreciate you putting that stuff out there because people do watch, and this is definitely a big thing now, especially with pandemic going on, jobs, and so this is all good info. So now we're gonna shift it here. You went through a pretty smooth transition, which is good. See, folks, vets, you can have a smooth transition if you prepare. And he had all the right stuff in place and made it happen. And there's sometimes, yes, it can be smooth, and then you take a little bit of mental stuff later on, and that's okay. But you know what? You did everything you can, and you put it in play so that way you can have a smooth transition. As long as you have everything laid out, have your plan, and kind of like out in the Army, I don't know what they call in the Marines, but we call it a PACE plan. your primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency plan. Have those backups when you get out, and you'll be good.
Yep.
So now, what another one of the tongue tied meat and potatoes here. Broken Jarhead. How'd you get that name? I always wonder people's nicknames and how they get them.
Yeah, so that wasn't actually given to me in the military anymore or anything. When I last year during COVID, when I first started like drawing and stuff, and people were kind of clinging on to it, and it was getting a little bit bigger. I was like, well, maybe I should just set up a website. And so I was just trying to think of a name, and they would always talk about Cunningham being broken, and I was like, broken, yeah, Jarhead. Oh, that's kind of catchy. Broken Marine. No, that doesn't have a ring. Broken Jarhead. That kind of sounds, yeah, that has a ring to it. I was like, it's got to be taken. And so I looked it up, and it wasn't. Okay, so I bought the URL. It reserved all the handles. Yeah, social media handles, all that kind of stuff. And it just happened, and then I created a logo. That was a picture of me, and then I just asked. I had somebody do that one for me. I asked the guy to put me in a sling. So yeah, it just kind of happened. Just kind of popped into my head one night.
That's dope. And I looked at your webpage. It's actually pretty cool. Cool, like things that you offer there, like Marine stuff. My wife is of Marine background as well, and she's all like raw Marines and this and whatever. And so I was gonna tell her to look at your site. Like, you got to like, I love coins. I have like 60 or 70 coins. I didn't buy them. I think I probably bought like 6 in there just because I thought they looked kind of neat. And that was after I got out. But you have some pretty cool coins on there. Like, I think I was actually gonna get one, that Till Valhalla one. I think that I saw on there on your website.
Yeah,
that one looks. That one looks badass. I'm actually think I'm gonna buy that one and stick it with my coin collection there, because that one is freaking cool. But
yeah, the first coin I bought was General Mattis, and it was like a joke coin, and that's the first coin I ever bought when I got out. And then when I started this business and kind of thinking about coins, I was like, okay, like you can't do something too serious, because a lot of people aren't going to buy them, because there's like that stigma across. Oh, you can't just buy a challenge coin. And so try to make them a little bit more meaningful, or something that it I don't know. It's something that you can gift to somebody. Like a lot of people that buy them, they'll buy them for themselves, or they'll buy them for someone else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the direction that I wanted to go down, is just make something that's kind of cool. That's why I went with the copper. It's not your traditional thing. So yeah, the coins, I like the coins. It's super cool to like do your artwork and then see it come out into like a mold, and hold that. It's pretty neat. So
that's pretty badass. Yeah. And then yeah, I was just saying, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, it's a lot of cool stuff on there. Like, even though it's like Marine stuff, I'm not Marine, but like just the idea and the concept of it, I was like, wow, that's pretty badass. Like, you have a lot of cool stuff on there. And if you need to go check out brokenjarhead.com, because it's actually pretty cool stuff on there. Maybe you got a Marine friend, brother, sister, maybe Marine dog, cat that are in the family, whatever. You can get them something from his website. It's actually pretty neat stuff on there. And then now, we'll talk about the podcast awards. That's an interesting idea and concept, that actually, because this is like something big, like, especially when you look up awards for like veterans in podcasts, there's none out there now. Just you pop up when you type that in. When you type in veteran podcast awards, you are the number one on the Google and the DuckDuckGo and the Bing and everything else. So like, how did that idea come up? Was it just you sitting one day and then like the bright idea fairy came flying by and hit you in the head with her wand, or like how'd that work?
Yeah, so that one, there's my daughter. Hey, boo-boo. Can you go downstairs with Jackson? Yeah. Give her a sticker and
there you go.
Yeah, so my buddy and I started our own little podcast. It was just like a 15-minute, seat of your pants thing. Yeah, my glasses. Seat of your pants thing. It was fun to do. We stopped doing it because we pretty much just ran out of time. The business kind of picked up, and so we just kind of cut it short. But since we're narcissistic assholes, we're like, well, obviously we have this, just crazy cool podcast. And one night I was like, there's got to be like an awards thing, right? So I type in podcast awards. The iHeart awards comes up. That's the biggest one with all the like the biggest names, that kind of thing. And then the People's Choice Awards, which has been around for like 20 years.
Yeah,
And I was
Kids'
pretty
Choice.
Yeah. And there's some, overseas and that kind of thing. And not that veterans have to have like something for themselves for everything, but I knew that like when I created the business, I was focused on a mission, right? Bringing awareness and trying to help people with the mental health issues. And so many companies, no offense to them, but they become almost sellouts, and they have investors, and they can't speak their minds. They can't say the quiet parts out loud. And I
Mhm.
can. And so many of them say, oh, we want to bring awareness to mental health. And I've worked with a couple charities that I researched and found out they don't give it barely any money to veterans. And so I said, I want to actually do something, right? Everybody says bring awareness, but let's bring awareness or encourage growth. And so I knew that a lot of veterans did podcasting to help cope with PTSD or whatever it may be, because that's the thing with PTSD is it comes from bottling it up so much and not talking through it and not facing your demons. And it's difficult to do that. And so I said, hey, what if we did like a veteran podcast awards? Like, so I Googled that and nothing came up. And then finally I found one, but it was geared towards like veterans of podcasting. And at that point I've done so much research. I was like, oh shoot, someone already did it. But yeah, I didn't find any. Nobody had done it. I was like, that's super weird. And so at first I went ahead and bought the URL, and I had no plans on doing an awards ceremony at the time because I've never done it. And at first it was selfish. I was like, I'll just make my own award and I'll win it. It will be an award-winning podcast.
With your
But
own
then the more that
have your own
my own
category
category
for yourself.
pretty much, yeah. It was like, what? You won the Better Podcast Awards, and it's just us. But then the more that I learned about people using podcasting as their therapeutic reasons, I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be an asshole. So yeah, just went ahead and did it. I found people talking about how much it cost and charging registration and all that, and I was like, I think I can do it for cheaper. I think I can make it cooler. Cooler awards. That's where you do the Warhammer. See it. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that thing is cool.
yeah, so I was like, what says veteran podcaster? So we got, everybody's stuff that'll be on there. And then, what says veteran podcaster, like a bludgeoning device, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of cool. Worked with a veteran-owned award shop for that. But yeah, so started it up, kind of ventured it out there to see what people thought. People took hold of it quite a bit. I was like, okay, so that's cool. And International Podcast Day is on September 31st. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll host it on there. And someone reached out and they're like, hey, the People's Choice is held on that date. Like, oh shit. Okay. Well, is there a veteran or a military podcast day? No, there's not. So I was like, all right, we're going to do that too. So we filled out the paperwork, paid the fees, and established the National Military Podcast Day. Officially with the National Archives, and that's October 5th. So we did it.
Put that in my phone. I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I saw you put it on there, but I'm gonna actually put it in my phone. What's it called? Veterans Podcast Day?
National Military Podcast Day.
National Military Podcast Day. Sweet.
So we did that. Well, it worked out for two reasons. I was like, okay, we need like a symbolic day. And so October 5th is the day before, like the 6th and 7th is when we staged and went into Afghanistan. And so I was like, okay, well, what would be cool to kind of represent the veterans, the post 9/11 veterans, and hold it on a day that is conveniently just 5 days away from, or September 30th, excuse me. Conveniently just a couple days away from the International Podcast Day and the day before we really entered into the war. So before a day of remembrance, we do a day of like celebration and encourage veterans or active duty, whatever you are, to keep making these podcasts and keep saying the quiet part out loud and talking about your feelings and your emotions and all that kind of thing. So yeah, just trying to bring something to those guys and girls that are doing this for a reason, and just celebrate them and lift them up a little bit.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. Like I know when I saw it, and we were talking about this before, it's like people trying to get on. I mean, and you made the instructions like really clear. There was like there's no other way to make the instructions as clear as you did. And
Tried to.
yeah, and marketing alone, like is that's a whole like I feel like there's a degree for marketing itself. Like there's like a you go to school to learn how to be a marketing person because there's a lot. You got like algorithms and you got advertisements and then you got I can't remember something with like I think it's called like pipelining or RSI or some crap like that where it's like how your stuff is delivered through the internet like it's a whole thing. But yours definitely pops up now. Like I do a Google search, like I looked it up and it's bam, it's like right there, first one. So like that's I like what you're doing with it and it's neat to see all those different podcasts because when you go on there to the page and you see, I didn't realize there was that many podcasts registered. Like there's a lot. Like in some categories have more, some have less. Like I know I'm in the health, was I think health and fitness, and there's a lot in there actually. And I like how you do it based off of like what it's registered for, like through another place. Like how you say, hey, I think you had it if you're whatever category you're in on your platforming is what you're going in for. I think
Yeah,
that's
you
smart
have to
too.
be. Yeah, I figure you have to be registered with Apple for two reasons. One, I didn't want like some Alex Jones guys just showing up being like crazy. So it required you to actually register with Apple. And then I knew that some people would see, like we have some categories that only have one person in them, which it is what it is. Like I'm not, someone didn't register for that. I'm not going to kick that person out. But I
Yeah.
knew that some person would, which is what I would do, would be like, oh, there's only one person on that one. I'll switch to there. And so it was a way then to say whatever category you were registered with Apple for, I'll check it out and make sure that you're where you need to be. So it kind of gives checks and balances. It eliminates the possibility for some craziness, and it allows me to remain objective and not try to move anybody around. So I guess above reproach, if you will. So you can't come and say, Shane influenced this or that. And he was like, oh, you can look up their URL to Apple. It's the same that they're in their category.
No, yeah,
So
and that's super smart too, like the way you did that. Because yeah, I can see people going like, oh, hey, can I switch my category to this? And then it's like, wait, there's only one in there. Like,
yeah,
no, that's super neat. Like because I noticed the same thing when I went and looked at it because I was like, I wanted to check it out because I was gonna go vote for some other podcast. Like I voted for Juan's podcast on there for the Marines, and I was looking, I was like, I seen a couple people with one in there, and I was like, oh. I guess they won here. I'll vote for them. Boop. And I just gave them a vote. I was like, well, there you go. Here's my vote, winner.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. You just won. Yeah, I had some people that like messaged because I asked for comments at the end to make it better, and they're like, "Oh, it'd be better if you had more than one person in some categories." Like if you read, I didn't go out and select these people; they registered, so I can't help that only one person registered. You can go start a podcast in that category and come next year, I suppose, but don't complain to me about it.
yeah, you got a whole year now to go in that one category podcast area.
Yeah, exactly. Go start a podcast. So yeah.
No, yeah, for real. But and I know a couple people, at least I know that I talked to. It's kind of the way the voting is set up. I know that something I don't know. It's like maybe I wouldn't say a criticism, but I think the way that the actual voting section is set up, like having that, like I think there's like a pop-up banner. I know some of the people I had that were gonna go vote for me had a little problem navigating through that, like how to get to the voting, and they couldn't find it because I think you have it like built in, right? Like a built-in box, maybe on the website, I think, or so that's just one thing I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah, it's like a built-in box. That was one of the difficult okay. Yeah, sorry, there was buffering or something. Yeah. At first, it was we had some difficulties with the desktop versus mobile version, because it is a built-in platform, and so you're basically like entering in this URL from a different website, and it's kind of like a portal. So we had to modify some of the sizes and the way that we did some stuff. So I think we got it ironed out, but yeah, there are a little bit of issues. I think we beat them all, but yeah, that's why I put that comment section at the bottom, because I wanted people to say what they were having problems with so we could fix it for next year.
Yeah, they didn't even. I don't think they put them. They just told me. I think the consensus
Oh,
of
okay.
like the 7 or 8 people told me like having its own tab, like you click the menu and then voting and having a tab by itself with it like its own page.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know the
Yeah, I
difficulty in
switched
that,
it
but
to I switched it to its own page because initially, yeah, it was like a sub page. You had to go somewhere and hover, and it went down. So yeah, I had to create a whole page for it. Yeah, I listened to some of the comments, and that was one of the biggest ones is not being able to exactly find it. So yeah, made it its own page. So yeah, I think we got it ironed out. I haven't
yeah,
had as many issues or come to the surface, so it's either ironed out or people aren't vocalizing it to me at least. But
yeah,
yeah, those are things that we'll look at next year and try to make them, better, streamline.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that was just one of the things that was told to me was just the ease of it and like having its own instead of maybe a built-in box, maybe having its own page like a polling in its own page instead of it being like in like a box within a page, maybe its own like layout. Like if you were to go to certain pages where they say, oh, and you click down at the bottom like a survey, like Survey
Yeah.
Monkey kind of something like that.
See,
That
so
was just
we use SurveyMonkey, and so that's something that I think that I'm going to do next year is I'll have the entire page so that you can vote. It'll give you the information and stuff. But then when you're ready to vote, you click a button and it actually takes you to the SurveyMonkey page itself. That way it's all formatted appropriately for desktop
right.
and mobile. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I'll probably do next year then.
Yeah, that was the main consensus for me on that one. Like, well, they told me so. Like, if they put it in the comments, I have no idea. That's just what they're like. Hey, Eric, you should tell the people. And I was like, well, I don't know the people personally, but I could message them. Like, so like I'll send them a message.
Yeah, good
But
to know.
no,
Good
we're
to know.
talking about it here. So all right. Well, as we wrap up all this stuff here, what's for people listening and things like that? What's motivation, something of motivation or inspirational you can tell the veteran community? Like if they didn't hear nothing else, or they're joining late, or they're catching the tail end of this podcast, what's something you can do to kind of help get their mind in the right place, or kind of that swift kick in the ass because you can what you say can actually help a veteran get off of their couch and actually go do something. So what's the little special message you got for the vets watching
Uh, I'd say
and
it's
listening?
I'd say it's twofold. I'm working on a blog post right now about this. Is when was the last time you were happy? Like it's a cliche we hear all the time, right? Happiness, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just stop and say, "Am I happy?" and analyze that question, right? Like I remember when we were done with the Crucible and it was hellacious, and I'm sitting there getting the globe and anchor put in my hand. It's surrounded by torture. 13 weeks of pain and torture in boot camp, the Crucible, being awake for a few days, just nastiness. But then for a split second or a couple minutes, you feel happy, right? And so the easy thing is to say, well, yeah, you just finished the Crucible, you just became a Marine, but examine that more. Why, surrounded by all this turmoil, am I happy? And you're happy with yourself. You did something yourself. You set out to do something. And I think a lot of the military, the vast majority of us, join for that purpose, whether it's a screwed up background or you're running from something. That was me, running from whatever you're running from, or a bad upbringing, whatever it is, you did it, right? And in that moment, I was happy with myself. And we hear that all the time. It's a cliche. You can't be happy with other people if you're not happy with yourself. How can you be happy with yourself? And you have to find that. And at the end of the day, and in the morning, it's only you looking back at yourself in the mirror. Are you happy? Are you doing what makes you happy? Or are you doing what everybody expects you to do? Right? Whether that's work or whatever it is, be true to yourself and change it if you don't like it. Like I gave up drinking and I got therapy, and now thinking of that dopamine boost when I take a drink of alcohol that makes me happy, that seems like it would be a less happy time because of the genuine happiness that I have as a person. I had a fake facade of confidence, in the military, and now I can wear my mom Birkenstock sandals and not care what anybody thinks because I'm genuinely happy. And I wish everybody could find that happiness that I have found. And I think it starts with looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, am I happy?
That's perfect. That's a good one. That's something that it's often like people, I think with that, people kind of like tap dance around that I am happy and they put their own spin on it and try to give a little thing. And I think it turns more into like trying to justify you're happy instead of just, what makes you happy. Like if something's not making you happy, don't justify it, like, oh, well, I'm not happy because, well, yeah, there's a reason. Yeah, you can give your reason, but don't let that be the reason you're not happy, like, and and no one's going to be happy 100% the day, 24/7, 365. No one's like that. You're going to have your days. I have my days, and I'm sure you have your days where you're just like, fuck everything, fuck people, everything, and you just want to be left alone, and that's okay. And you, like how you said, you internalize that, you process that, and you pull those happy thoughts in there, happy memories and things, and then, you do whatever you need to do to put yourself back in that place. So I think that's a good way to leave it is with, are you happy? And if not, why?
Yeah.
So Shane, man, I thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Taking the time. I hear your little kids back there. It's cute. Like I said, I don't mind them being around.
She just yelled, "Daddy, I pooped." All right. See, we're happy over here.
She feels better. Stomach don't hurt no more.
Yeah.
So, and I can only imagine how that sounds to people who aren't watching and actually listening, like on Anchor or Google or Apple or Pandora. Like they're listening, and all of a sudden, like, oh, Daddy, I pooped my pants. So, but we'll close it off here. So then that way you can go change the pants. And thank you everybody for watching. www.veteranpodcastawards.com. You can Google it. It'll pop up. That's this man's work right there. He set up everything, did a great job. Vote for my podcast in the Army, top overall, health and fitness, all of it. Just saying, 2 days left. 2 days.
2 days.
You guys need to get in there and get your votes. There's also other podcasts on there you can check out too. You can check out a good buddy of mine, Juan Garcia, the Stone Vet. He's a pretty good podcast too. Talks about all types of stuff, and they're doing big things in the marijuana specter. I see the post that he does. Check out his Facebook page. They're making some pretty big advances and leaps with that push on the whole marijuana front. So you can check those out as well. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Shane, thanks for coming on. And I will see everybody next week on the Warrior Mindset and Motivation Podcast. I'm out.